Sorry. Okay, hello, Kaden. Sorry, the detection is not well. Let me just redetect again. Okay, never mind. Let me just open today's worksheet first, and then I'll redo the settings for this one. Okay, so Kaden, I understand that you are currently overseas, so this will be a playback for you. Okay, so you can watch this playback at your free time. Okay, so today's worksheet, I will continue on from last week's worksheet first, okay? After which, I will continue with today's worksheet. Hold on a second. Let me just share with you last week's worksheet, which is on voyage. Meanwhile, let me just change the setting of this. How come still cannot? So fun. Hold on, so sorry. Okay, yes, this is better. Okay, so I think last week we were doing we did this. Okay, I think that we also finished question 4, which is the power of China at this point. So I think we went on to, I think what I gave you as homework was on comprehension. Okay, so before we continue with comprehension, okay, I would just like you to start, I will set a timer. I will give you 5 minutes, okay, maybe not 5 minutes, I'll give you maybe 7, 8 minutes. Okay, so the 7, 8 minutes, I would like you to give this editing a shot. Okay, same thing, there are 10 questions, out of which you will have to pick out 2 errors and, 8 errors and 2 that are correct, okay? So I will leave it here and then I will just set the timer now for 8 minutes, 4:33. Okay. Okay, so I'll set 8 minutes timer. There should be sufficient time for you to pick up. So once the timer goes off, I will be going through the worksheet. Okay, so this is a timer. I think you are able to see it. Okay, so once the timer goes off, I will start going through the editing. So you have about 5 minutes, 30 seconds to go. Okay, let's start. Okay, so I hope that you have finished. Okay, in the event that Kaden, you have not finished, right, you can actually pause this recording. Okay, but don't give yourself anything more than extra 2 minutes, okay? Because I set it as 8 minutes. You shouldn't take more than 10 minutes for editing. Okay, so over here, I will be going through the editing. So like I said, 10 questions, 8 mistakes, 2 are correct. The technique to doing editing, I've mentioned lesson and over and over again, is to always do the harder ones first. To do the easier ones first, okay? The ones that you one look, you know that there's definitely a mistake. Okay, this helps you to save time. Okay, like I said, don't give yourself more than 10 minutes for editing. I've given you 8 minutes, so if you do need another 1 or 2 minutes, that's okay, but nothing more than 10 minutes, okay? So let's begin. 49-year-old Mr. G. Jaishankar was crowned the winner of the 13th Subaru Challenge. Okay, so this Subaru Challenge, right, is basically for them to win the car. Okay, so how they win, right? If I'm not wrong, okay, I think they stopped this for a period of time because of COVID. Okay, it's basically you place your palm on the car. Okay, and of course, the last one standing will be able to walk away with a car. So sometimes we are talking about like standing there for like days, okay, because definitely there will be people who are physically a lot stronger, mentally also, stronger. Okay, some people can last for days just standing there, putting the palm there for a car, okay? So the Singaporean outlasted 400 contestants. Okay, kept his palm on the car for 82 hours, 16 minutes and 58 seconds. So over here, there is already a very obvious mistake. Okay, so firstly, take note it is in past tense. So outlasted is correct because it's also in past tense. Okay, so the Singaporean outlasted 400 contestants. Okay, keeping his palm on a car for 82 hours, 16 minutes and 58 seconds. Keeping, okay? The stats catering officer, okay, walked away with a Subaru Forester worth $85,000. This is his third time participating. In 2012, he takes second prize. Okay, so question number 2 doesn't seem to have a mistake, okay, but I'm not too sure, so I will leave it blank for now. Okay, so it's what I'm saying. Okay, always go for the ones that is very obvious. Okay, of course I will know the correct answer to you. What I'm trying to say is that I'm saying in a student's perspective. Okay, so if question 2 you're unsure, okay, you can skip to the next one first. So this is his third time participating. Seems okay. In 2012, so we are talking about before this event already. He takes second prize. So it should be he took second prize. Like I said, past tense. And now we're even talking about the event from the past. So it is even more obvious that it should be past tense. Okay, he took second prize and last year he ended up 4th. Finally, he makes his peace, said Mr. Jaishankar's wife after he picked up the prize. Okay, so question 4 also seems okay. Okay, it's okay to say makes because it's more present and it's a conversation. So I will skip question 4. I'll move on to question 5. On his message to future contestants, what is wrong with this message? What is wrong with this sentence? In his message, okay, you don't say on anybody's, okay, in his message, okay, in the message. Mr. Jaishankar said, nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. Okay, despite staying awake in more than 4 days, this is definitely wrong, for more than 4 days. So you see, this is what I meant by, you tackle the easier, more obvious ones first. Question 7 already, and I managed to pick out 4. Okay, so it's a lot, it's better than I've seen students who dwell on it for very long. Keep thinking, oh, is this correct? Should I write? Should I not write? Just skip it first. This is your first few times writing it, so it doesn't matter. Okay, you can revisit it again later. Okay, he told the media he will go for supper before head home with his family. Another obvious one, before heading home. Okay, so, instead of sleeping, he actually is going to head home with his family first, okay, before heading home with his family. Malaysia Tan Hong Shen walked away as this year's Asian winner, okay, as the final standing regional contestant, okay, with a time of 81 hours and 58 minutes, okay, 81 hours. Okay, so this is quite an obvious one because, right, if you were to look at here, okay, 82 hours, 81 hours. Okay, so this is a giveaway. Also, oh, sorry. Okay, so this is actually kind of a giveaway. Hours. Okay, because there's more than 1 hour. If minutes, we already have minutes, then hours obviously should be hours. Okay. Anyway, there's a typo here, I think. Okay, this one should be Malaysian. Okay. Instead of Malaysia. Malaysia is actually a country. So this is Malaysian. Okay, so this is a typo that is not related to the passage. Okay, but I mean, if you pick it up as a mistake, I will accept it. Okay, but I do believe it's just a typo. Okay. Let me see. Okay, the 34-year-old won $5,000 cash. This year's enduring competition saw 300. Okay, another obvious one. Not enduring, endurance competition. Okay, so this is actually an endurance. Okay, a test of your patience, a test of your physical strength by standing there, a test of your mental ability to not give up. Okay, and most importantly, enduring all this hardship. Okay, standing there 82 hours, how many days? 3 days? Yeah, about a good 3 days. Okay, 3.5 days actually. First, 24 times 3 is 72, right? So it's about 3.5 days. So it's quite a long period of time. Okay, so see, now that there's 10 questions, I've already easily tackled 7. So you know what I mean by you do the easier question first. Okay, so you save you a lot of time. Okay, what you do next is you go back to 2, 4, 6. So out of this 2, 4, 6, right, there's definitely 2 that are correct, and there will be 1 more that is grammatically wrong. So this is when you revisit back, okay, and see which could it be. Okay. For 82 hours, 60 minutes and 58 seconds. The stats catering officer walked away with a Subaru. Really seems to be quite okay, right? So let's see this one. He takes second prize, and last year he ended up 4th. Okay. Finally, he makes his peace, said Mr. Jaishankar's wife. Okay, what about this one? Mr. Jaishankar said, nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. Despite staying awake for more than 4 days. So out of 2, 4, 6, which is wrong. Okay. Made his peace. Okay. Finally, he made his peace. Over here, this is correct. The walked away with a Subaru. Okay, it is definitely correct. Okay, and over here, there's also nothing wrong. Okay, he said nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. Okay, it's also correct. Despite staying awake, it's also correct. So it's actually here. Instead, it is actually here. Yeah. Okay, instead of makes his peace, finally he made his peace. Okay. Okay. So with that, we are done with the editing. So okay, then for this comprehension, I hope you have done it as homework. I will be going through with you in details for this one because comprehension, right, it will be good for you to read our answer to me. Okay, so I'll skip this and I'll start with today's worksheet. Okay, which is on lesson 30. Okay, this one. Argumentative essay. Okay, so a little background on argumentative essay. Okay, so when we're in primary school, we like to write more of story. Okay, they will give you a picture, you will write about it, correct? Okay, but when you progress and as you grow, okay, you will write less of story, you will write more of argumentative essay. So argumentative as itself, it just means that you have to give your own argument, okay? And of course, you also have to come up with, so how should I phrase it? You have your own set, okay? For example, okay, a question can be, do you think, okay, studying at home, home-based learning, okay, is beneficial for the student? Yes or no? So there's definitely a yes or no to it, correct? You have to further on elaborate. So you will have to give 2 points, okay, that support why home-based learning is good. Then you have to give 1 more point that says why home-based learning is not good. But of course, you must have a conclusion paragraph, okay, which talk about all the points, but ultimately still support your own point. Okay, so for example, whether if home-based learning is beneficial, yes or no? To me, I feel yes. Okay, honestly speaking, yes, COVID is a very difficult period of our life, okay? We spent basically 2 years of our life not being able to travel. Okay, we spent 2 years of our life, in Singapore at least, okay, we couldn't have large gatherings, correct? Okay, because started from 2020, about April, we had a circuit breaker, and then we had finally opened a bit, and then we had heightened alert. Okay, so all the time it was, it was between 2 packs gathering, no gathering, or 5 packs gathering. At one point it was like maybe 8 packs, but quickly it went back to 5, then it went back to 2. Okay, so we spent like 2 years of this not being able to, have proper Chinese New Year gathering, for example. Okay, so of course I would say that COVID is not a very good thing in that sense. It really takes away a lot of precious time. But okay, it also allow us to have things like home-based learning. So before this, we didn't have Zoom lesson. We didn't have, okay, we have to always go down physically. So actually, honestly speaking, work from home, home-based learning is good in the sense that, okay, it really kind of make use technology to help us solve real life problems. Okay, so people came out with Zoom. There's things like sharing screen, annotations, So this is one thing that I feel that it further on tap on our technology and allow people to, and you see, for example, delivery, it also grow during that period of time. Okay, so home-based learning was made a lot easier with technology. Okay, teachers are still able to conduct lessons. Okay, so I don't think you were born during the period of in 2001, I think, or is it 2003? Okay, were you born already? Okay, you are not. Okay, so 2003, I was 11 years old. So back then, there's something called SARS. SARS is this something like COVID, except it's not as long. Okay, it was probably for like a period of half a year. So there was a period where they stopped school also. But back then, we didn't have home-based learning. So what I could remember is, for the 2-3 weeks when I didn't have school, I have to go down to school to collect the worksheet. No teacher explained to me or anything. I have to just do the worksheet by myself and learn. For an 11 years old kid, that is really a lot of discipline and But unlike now, okay, everything, when they say, okay, school closed down, everybody go home. Okay, they can just immediately migrate to online. I can do up, our manager, Mr. can do up all this worksheet. Okay, I can converse with you verbally. Okay, there's still a human touch to it. Okay, as compared to, maybe like 20 years ago when we first also had that SARS episode, okay, where I really couldn't even see or talk to my teacher at all. Okay, so of course I would feel that home-based learning in this sense, okay, the improvement of technology is one of the benefits. Okay, and also, why do I feel that home-based learning is good? Okay, it's because it really minimizes the risk of transmitting diseases, especially in the period of COVID where it's so easily transmittable. Okay, especially for younger children whose immunity is just not as strong. Okay, so there are a lot of cases whereby younger children got it and then they fell very ill. Okay, and or like even some people who are 50s, 60s who got it and also fell very ill. Okay, I mean, I myself also had COVID before. It was really uncomfortable. but it still allowed me to have a platform to reach out to students. So I think, in that sense, home-based learning from COVID is a good thing because firstly, my technology, okay, I tap on it, okay, it allows me to still have that human communication and touch with my students, which I really didn't have last time. Secondly, okay, if a student is sick or whatsoever, okay, or we need to be quarantined, okay, maybe the last few days you feel quite okay already, but you're still quarantined, you can still come online to join in, okay, without any fear of transmitting the disease. You don't have to totally sit out of it. Okay, so of course, in that sense, yes, okay, work from home-based learning is definitely beneficial. Of course, okay, like all things, nothing is perfect. There's always two sides to a coin. Okay, two sides to a coin means that there's always a head and a tail. Okay, so there's always two opposing sides. Of course, the one thing I noticed about home-based learning is the lack of attention from certain students. So I have students who participate very well when it comes to home-based learning. Okay, I also have younger students who have difficulty concentrating when it comes to home-based learning. Okay, they start to secretly play games, or they will watch YouTube video. Okay, so these are times where I feel that yes, as compared to physical lesson, home-based learning lack of that certain, discipline. But of course, there are certain students who totally don't have such issue at all because they are already very disciplined themselves. Okay, so this is my counter thesis. So two supporting theses is to say that yes, it's good, minimize transmission, lesson can still go on, yada yada yada. The counter thesis is that okay, it's not good in the sense that certain students will lack the focus. Okay, they will not be able to participate properly in class. They will be distracted with online games. They'll be distracted with YouTube, with the media, etc. Okay. However, why is this less important? It's because majority of the students, okay, maybe their parents are sitting around, so monitoring them, okay, so they still will be participating, except for the small group who is easily distracted. Of course, this group of students, if I notice in the long run that they are really easily distracted, I will also voice it out to the parents, who will definitely step in to do something about it. Okay, so the one I'm trying to give you an example here, right, is that you must always have two supporting points, one point that oppose it, but you cannot let the opposing point override. That means that you must still have some evidence that can say that, okay, but it's not as bad because And at the end part, of course, you must always conclude. Okay, so this is what I mean by argumentative essay. Okay, so the remaining time, I will give you 2 minutes. You will just have to read through page 2 first. Okay, to what extent is the preservation of wildlife important in your country? So now you know there's a lot of deforestation, cutting down of trees, burning of forests, okay? So in our country, of course, you must write about Singapore. Don't go and write about Indonesia, what haze and fire, okay? So you have to write pertaining to our country, okay? And of course, wildlife, right? Okay, it's not just about trees, it's also maybe marine animals, okay, or animals living inside the forest. Okay, so I will just leave this here for 2 minutes and then I will come back and we will go through. These 2 minutes to read through the article. Okay, then I know that it's like left with 2 seconds, but I thought until my throat very pain because I think today there's no you to talk to me. Okay, so allow me to go and get a cup of water. Okay, so you just stay on the same page. Okay, I'll be back in about 30 seconds. Just get a cup of water. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I went to drink water. Okay, let's start with the passage first. After going through the passage, of course, I will leave you to do the introduction, body, and also the conclusion. Okay, but allow me to just elaborate and explain that passage a little bit. Okay. Okay, so I will do the reading. Vocabularies, because Kato, you're not physically here, so vocabularies that I feel is a bit more difficult, I will explain it lah. Okay. But if there's any other words that I happen to skip and I didn't explain, feel free to note it down. I will go through with you again next week. Okay, you can voice it out to me. Okay. So let's start. The preservation of wildlife has gained increasing attention in the last decade. Decade usually means 10 years. Okay. When people started to realize that our attempts at making better lives for ourselves have robbed these animals of their homes. In Singapore, there's very little wildlife to speak of, which is true. Singapore, you don't have like tiger roaming around. Okay, when you go to say say all the mangrove forest, or you go to like MacRitchie Walk, right? All you see is probably just some monkeys, squirrels, chickens, some birds. Okay, Singapore don't really have like a lot of wildlife as compared to say like maybe Australia. Okay, Australia you go out, it's like what, kangaroos jumping around, or like a smaller kangaroo like wallabies, or like wombat, or sometimes even in Australia or New Zealand there's whales and dolphins. Okay, in the sea, in the ocean. Singapore, not so much of this, okay? Or like, in like Africa, okay, the wildlife is like monkeys, tigers, they have their safari over there, okay? So in Singapore, comparatively, we have very little wildlife, okay? With the exception of several species of birds, okay, and aquatic creatures. So like maybe our just really fish, and we don't really have like, even our polar bear last time was from overseas, okay? Even our panda now, okay, it's a loan from China. Okay, so we don't really have a lot of like natural wildlife. Okay, attention has been largely focused on the conservation of the environment. This is not to say that wildlife has been ignored. The government has a portion means like to put aside, okay, to like take out a portion of it, okay, pockets of land for the preservation of wildlife. Visitors to East Coast can see tracts of land along the beach set aside as bird sanctuaries. Okay, bird sanctuaries are like places whereby they build it specially for like bird. Okay, so like you can really call Jurong Bird Park a bird sanctuary also. Okay, because most of the things there are more catered towards the birds. Okay, they try to mimic their real, or they try to contain, or they try to maintain how the real ecosystem is like for the birds. Okay, bird lovers often come here to catch glimpses of unusual birds and insects that make these places a regular haunt. Okay, when we say a regular haunt, means it's a place that you frequently go to. Okay, it is hoped that these pockets of land, okay, set aside to protect wildlife will balance the rapid industrialization and urbanization of Singapore. In the northwest of Singapore, the Sungai Buloh Nature Reserve, okay, has been set aside as a sanctuary for migratory birds. I've been so long since I went to this nature reserve. When I was a kid, I went there a few times. So, like I said, there's not much of wildlife, but there's really quite a few different species of birds. Okay, so it is a natural reserve. It's like a mangrove forest, I think. Okay, I'm not very sure. Government has also put in a lot of emphasis, okay, on supporting wildlife through on protecting wildlife through the support of the local zoo. This is quite true. Okay, so for example, I don't know if you've been to like River Safari. Okay, so the home they built for Kai Kai Jia Jia, right, is really, they try to mimic their real environment. So if I didn't recall wrongly, okay, I think the whole place has aircon. Okay, because you know, this kind of hot sun of 35 degrees, the pandas are not going to survive well. So I think they built one whole big area with a lot of fake bamboos and real bamboos. And then they have like, you know, small like hilly regions. Okay, and I think the whole entire time the area is cooled with aircon. Okay, so the zoo boasts a design that incorporates as much of natural surroundings as possible into the creation of space for the animals to roam around in. As a result, the animals are made to feel right at home instead of being cooped up in the barrenness of the usual cage. Okay, so barren, now when you say barren means very empty, very lack of like you know a cage, right? How it's like, right? Okay, it's just like a few bars. Okay, so but of course, if you try to make the environment more similar to their natural environment, okay, it wouldn't be barren. Okay, so the animals are thus not exposed to an alien environment, but are given the best care possible by the experienced zookeeper. Furthermore, a lot of research and effort have gone to ensuring the perpetuation of wildlife species now in protection at the zoo. Preserving wildlife is obviously a concern of the local environment, a local government, judging from the fact that they spend a lot of money on the zoo, which is true. Okay, so I think just Kai Kai Jia Jia, the whole entire place is probably very costly. So last time when we had the polar bear, which passed away a few years ago, okay, they actually also tried to have the whole area cooled down to a certain temperature. Okay, the polar bear is called Inuka. Okay, so Inuka has passed away a few years ago, but it also lived quite a long period of time in Singapore. So despite Singapore's natural climate not cold, they really set the entire place to be cold with like water and all those. Okay. However, it is important to realize that Singapore has very limited land space, okay, for use in the preservation of wildlife. The concern has always been her citizens' welfare above all else. So the thing about Singapore is that we are really very limited in terms of our space. Okay, we are just like what we call ourselves, a little red dot. Okay, so given that we have millions of people, okay, we will have a lot of buildings, you know, so there's really a lack of space. Okay, and we really have to maximize it in that sense. Okay. So the priority is always given to the development of housing and industries. So I do think you know what is BTO. Okay, BTO is built to order HDB flats. Okay, so nowadays the buildings for all the BTO flats are all very tall. Okay, last time maybe our HDB is only like 11 floor, 12 floor. Okay, nowadays it's all like 20 over floors. Okay, it's because they want to just maximize the use of it. Okay. But whatever possible, okay, land areas have been specified as conservation area to protect resident species. So a good example was the modification of plans to develop a piece of land in the western region Singapore when it discovered that a species of rare crabs had made their home on the land. Okay, I didn't know about this. Okay, I stay in the West. I didn't know that it's like home to some rare crabs. Okay. Okay, in the end, all was well with the development going ahead but not affecting the crab's habitat. Clearly, the preservation of wildlife is of priority. Priority means of high importance, okay, for the government. But the policy followed is that whenever possible, efforts will be made to ensure the survival of these species. But the main concern is still for the overall development of Singapore, give the citizens a life compatible. Compatible means comparable. Okay, that means it's on par. Okay, there's not like any lagging behind. Okay, comparable or on par. On par means on same level. Okay, with that of the rest of the developed world. Okay, so I will stop here. Okay, I don't think there's any words that I missed out that is too difficult for your understanding. Okay, so basically, obviously, from here you can tell that the writer is very keen to say that basically, you know, they preserve it to a huge extent. Yeah, there are times whereby, you know, they will still build all the houses and everything. But okay, our government still make the effort to protect the wildlife. Like they said, you see, yes, okay, concern has always been citizens' welfare, us. Okay, but if possible, they will also conserve to protect the species. Okay, like one example the person gave was, you know, like the crab. So when they realize that the crab is always coming back, they will try not to touch the area so much. With the development still ongoing, maybe there's a small area they keep it just for the crab. Okay, so I would believe that what the writer is trying to say, to a huge extent, the government still puts in lots of effort to actually protect the wildlife. Okay, so okay then, I want you to use the remaining 15 minutes, okay, to actually look at this. So I want you to do, okay, so what this exercise is about, right, is for you to pick out, okay, the introduction. So you have to discuss the topic. What the topic is discussing about, okay, preservation of wildlife, okay. The essay or keywords are not so important. You can pick out a few, you can pick out a few. Thesis statement. Okay, what is the main thesis statement? Okay, so you see, the thesis is attention has largely been focused on conservation. It's true, they really focus quite a fair bit, okay. And of course, the support of it, how so? How did the government do? Or what did the government do to support? Okay, you must give me the point here. And what did the government, you know, do a bit in a way that it's not very supportive, like building the residential, because welfare of citizens always come first. However, you must also say the rebuttal, which is, but what did they also do to make sure that they still protect the animals? Okay, like you can use the crab incident. Okay, they still will try their best to minimize disruption. Okay, of course, in conclusion, Singapore government still does its fair job and to a huge extent to preserve the environment if possible. Okay, so okay, now I'll give you about 15 to 20 minutes to do this part. Okay, so 15 to 20 minutes, I'll give you about 17 minutes. Okay, it should be more than sufficient. Okay, our same thing, jump to the timer page. Okay, I'll just give you 17 minutes. Okay, at the end of the timer, I will be going through the pointers. Okay, so timeline is 5:16. Timer ends should be about 5:30, 5:32-ish. Okay, about 5 more minutes, okay? Okay, so it is time's up. Okay, let us go through the passage, the question. Okay. So for introduction, discuss the topic. Okay, so discussion of the topic, of course, okay, it will be the importance of preservation of wildlife in the country. The importance of wildlife preservation okay, in the country, in over here, which means Singapore. Okay, so this is of course the topic that we have been discussing for the last 30 minutes. Okay, so the dissect the keyword, it is more of like wildlife extent, the extent of it. Okay, is it to a huge extent, or is it like, you know, a small extent? Okay, the extent of it. Okay, the importance of it. Okay, whether is it really important, and of course wildlife preservation itself. Okay, so these are the keywords dissection. Okay, the extent of it, whether is it to a big extent, small extent, okay, is it a lot of effort being put in, or is it like just, you know, bare minimal, okay, and how important it is. Okay, of course, the thesis statement in over which here, okay, so thesis statement for him is, okay, attention has been largely focused on the conservation of environment. Okay, so attention has been largely focused on the conservation of environment. So it's true, largely focused is to tell you the extent of it. Okay, so by saying it is largely focused, we are indeed telling you the extent of it. Okay, so I will leave this here for 2 minutes for you to copy first. Okay, when you're done, I will continue with the body support. Okay, let us continue. So I'll erase this. Okay, so now let's talk about the body support, okay, which is the point whereby the author wrote that he's supportive of, as in not he, as in the government is supportive of actually conserving the environment. Okay, so it's over here. Oh, okay. Larger focus on conservation of, okay, sorry. Over here, you need a bit more. Okay, conservation of environment and also preservation of wildlife. Okay, I forgot to include this. Okay, so if I were to do okay, so it's like that, and preservation of wildlife. Okay, so add in the last bit. I realize I only managed to add in the first part just now. Okay, let us continue. Okay, over here. Okay, so the government has, okay, so visitor bird sanctuaries often come, hope that this pocket set aside to provide wildlife would balance the rapid industrialization, urbanization of Singapore. Okay, so you can talk about here, discuss the topic, which is okay, so government has apportioned, okay, pockets of land for the preservation of wildlife. So this is definitely one point. So that means they did portion out pockets of land for the preservation. Okay, the elaboration of it will be over here. What did they do to do it? Okay, so elaboration, right, will be so there are actually 2 points that support this. Okay, so one point is here. The second point is here. Okay, so these are the 2 points supporting it. So the government, so how you elaborate is that, you know, like maybe you can, so I'll only write 1 point, okay, because there's only space for 1 point. So the other point is actually over here, the zoo part, but I'll focus more on the first point. Okay, it's over here. Pockets of land, okay, set aside to balance the rapid urbanization. Okay, so over here you can write this. So what did they do? Okay, the elaboration of it is okay, pockets of land were actually set aside to protect wildlife. Okay, set aside to protect wildlife in hope to balance the rapid industrialization and urbanization of Singapore. Okay, so the example and evidence of it will be over here. Okay, so in the northwest of Singapore, Sungai Buloh, okay, natural reserve has been actually set aside as a sanctuary space for the birds. Okay, so this is definitely the evidence lah. This is what we did because they're asking you about what did we do in our country. Okay, so this is what we did in our country. Okay, so this is the example evidence to support what you have explained. So the link to topic, of course, is that government did put in the effort to preserve and save the wildlife. Okay. Okay, the government does put in efforts for the preservation of wildlife, because you're just trying to prove a point that, hey, the government really does do this. Okay, so I'll leave this here for you to copy for 2 minutes. Okay, so but if you're unable to copy finish, right, you can always pause the recording and copy first. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this copying part. Okay, so let me clear it and move on to the next section. Okay, of course, we have what we call the body, which is the counter argument to it. Okay, counter argument, like I said, okay, it means the opposing point of it. Okay, like how the author or the writer feels that, you know, there were times whereby preservation of wildlife were not done, or like, you know, there's a lack of it. Okay, so it's over here. Okay, which is government will always place the citizens' welfare above all else. Okay, thus, Singapore has very limited space, and of course, our welfare will always come above us, above anything else. Okay. Singapore has very limited land space for the use in the preservation of wildlife. Okay, and our welfare, okay, is often above all else. Okay, it's often above all else. Okay, so we can further elaborate on this point, okay, to which we can say, okay, you know, priority, okay, is always given to development of housing and industry, okay, to provide adequately means enough, okay, sufficient, to provide adequately for the family. Okay, so what example or evidence? Okay, example or evidence would be, okay, see over here, okay, the building of HDBs, correct? Or the building of residential buildings. Okay, for us, correct? We have a lot of residential project going on. Projects. Okay, and of course the rebuttal. Rebuttal means like the argument to say that, okay, it's not just this. Okay, the government also do this, which is here. However, wherever possible, okay, land still will be used to try to protect the animal species there if possible. But wherever possible, land areas has been specified as conservation areas to protect resident species. Okay, so if can, the government will still try to protect them. Okay, so of course the link to the topic, okay, would be, you know, we are always placed above anything else, but if possible, okay, so you always say, okay, development still go ahead, okay, but while making sure that, okay, the natural environment of the wildlife is not too, hold on, let me just paraphrase. Oh no. Development still carries ahead, but not affecting much of the wildlife habitat. Okay, so it's a counter argument to show that what you do also. Okay, so I'll leave it here first. Okay, I will clear this again. Okay, then we will move on to the last part, which is the conclusion. Okay, so like I said, okay, when you conclude, you must still go back to the point that you're talking about. You cannot, you know, just decide to go to the opposite. Oh my God, how come I become so white again? Okay, the opposing point. Okay, still must stand firm on what you say. Okay, so when you summarize it, okay, you still must say that you go back to more of the support. Okay, so like what the author wrote. Okay, preservation of wildlife is of priority, but policy followed is wherever possible, efforts, okay, will be made to ensure. Okay, but of course, we will still try to make sure Singapore citizen has a good life. Okay, so that means we come first, but government still makes the effort to still makes the effort to preserve the environment, the wildlife. Okay, preservation of wildlife is a priority for the government, but the policy followed is that wherever possible, efforts will be made to ensure the survival of this species. Okay, so summarize the relationship between the paragraphs would be over here. Okay, so efforts will be made to ensure the survival of the wildlife. Okay, but primary concern is still the overall development of Singapore. Okay, which is to give the citizen here a life that is compatible to the other countries. Okay, so effort is actually honestly made to ensure that species can survive, but of course the primary concern is still for the overall development of Singapore to ensure the citizens have a compatible living environment as the rest of the world. Okay, so I'll leave this here. You copy this, and 6 o'clock, which is about 3 minutes away from now, I'll end the lesson. Okay, but before I then end the lesson, Kedan, I would like you to just, if you have the time to do page 5 and 6, and this, page 5, 6, 7, and 8. If you don't have the time, it's okay because I understand that you're actually on holiday and you'll only be back I think Friday, right? So our lesson is on Monday. So it's okay if you don't have the time, we can continue next lesson. Okay, but if you have the time, or at least maybe read through page 5 and 6 first. Okay, so I'll leave this here, and at 6 o'clock, I will just end the lesson. Okay, so you can copy this also. Okay, so it's 6:01. Okay, then I'll stop here and then we will continue next week. Okay, so I hope you had a good holiday and I will see you in class again next Monday. Bye bye.